You know what? I'm gonna listen to some hip-hop.
I don't think so, buddy.
Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review. Aesop Rock, Skelethon. Aesop Rock was once, in the late 90s and early 2000s, a very prominent figure in underground hip-hop. Back when underground hip-hop was not really as big as it is now, thanks to the internet. I would actually go as far as to say he is like the ultimate nerd MC. And I don't mean like the fashionable, cool kind of nerd image that we're faced with all too often today. Ooh, look at me, I'm quirky, I wear thick glasses, and I'm into really obscure stuff. I'm living a lie. Instead, I definitely give Aesop the Nerd of the Year award for his very dense and well-read lyrics, regularly employing words that will have you getting up to grab the nearest dictionary to decipher what the hell he's saying. And even though it can be really difficult to read into this guy's lyrics, for me, it's truly the only way you can fully appreciate and enjoy his music, because he's not the kind of MC who's going to sit back and make a poppy track where you can kind of just tune him out and just vibe to the instrumental. In my opinion, Aesop's early stuff is great. Of course, it's very wordy, at times very passionate and catchy. The instrumentals on his earlier LPs too have a more, I guess, traditional sound to them. But Aesop's, I guess, progression past his earlier work has been a bit of a double-edged sword for me. While I do feel like his songs have become more conceptual, his verbiage has become just heavier. On the album None Shall Pass, he started kind of taking on this sharp, like somewhat forced rasp to his vocal delivery and not really varying that all too much. And I feel like that kind of kills his vocal dynamic a bit and makes things ever so slightly redundant. And admittedly, it took me a little while to kind of get past it too. And it took me a while to review this album as well. And it's mostly because it's been a long time since I've kind of sat down and intently listened to an album from this guy. With now, what continues to amaze me about this guy is just his awe-inspiringly detailed approach to rapping about things that I feel like pass most people by on an everyday basis. For example, the track Friar Starter, which is kind of about a late night trip to a California donut shop. And it kind of touches down on everything from sprinkles to the various styles and flavors, to double chins. And the instrumental and Aesop's voice itself have a very kind of creepy, eerie, and strange the aura around them, and it just makes me think, man, do you contemplate everything so deeply? He definitely can turn something normal into something eerie, but on another track he turns something that is kind of childish and silly into an intense battle for dietary sovereignty. The track is Grace, and it's really Aesop kind of rapping from the perspective of himself as a child not wanting to eat the greens on his plate for dinner. And lyrically, he just builds the climax higher and higher and higher as the track progresses. The stories on here can get, I guess, legitimately dark, though. The track Ruby 81 is really one of my favorites on Skelethon, and it features him kind of rapping over this throbbing drone that sounds like it could have come from a horror movie soundtrack or something. And the story itself is kind of about this kid who slips away from her mother's attention during a 4th of July fireworks show and nearly drowns in a pool. But it does kind of have a happy and animal-related ending. But I will say this album is more about endings than it is happiness, because if there is one huge theme that links most of these tracks together, it is death. The track 0 Dark 30 kind of seems to be about Aesop putting weaker rappers out of their misery. And he talks about doing this with just such wordy verses, you wouldn't think that's what the song is actually about. It's very subtle braggadociousness, I guess. And on the track Crows, which has Kimya Dawson singing on the hook, and she is a really nice, creepy addition to the song, her and Aesop kind of spit all over the tradition of celebrating the dead with tombstones and rock monuments, when really all you're doing in the ground under that monument is just rotting. The track Homemade Mummy on here brings morbid to another level and literally talks about the instructions for mummification, but kind of uses a cat as its guinea pig, so to speak. A few of the tracks leading up to the finish of this album have some pretty grimy beats and some straight spitting from Aesop. I love those tracks a lot, and this album is bookended by these two songs that kind of paint this current self-portrait of Aesop as this guy who is a loner, maybe slightly suicidal, and even though his isolation is self-imposed, it's also kind of driving him insane. It's a dark picture, but one of the most sincere and raw moments on this album. Poetically, I feel like Aesop is as good as he's ever been. That's to be expected, but this album does present a first for him, though. It is the first time he is handling all the production on one of his LPs. For sure, this is a cohesive album, but I do feel like some of the hooks are lacking on this thing. For example, the third track on here, the hook is so understated, it might as well not even be there. And the track Racing Stripes just seems to be, I guess, so odd and silly, not only rapping about kind of haircuts and some funny stories behind them, but the track just really kind of feels too indulgent for me, and the instrumental adds to that. But when it comes to the beats on here, while it is not my favorite production of the year, it is pretty solid and does the job. I really love the classic rock drum fills and the heavy guitar chords on the track ZZZ Top. The pulsating synths on the track Zero Dark 30 have a nice tension to them. The beat for Friar Starter is very eerie and creepy and kind of becomes hilarious given the subject matter I talked about before. There are some spots where I kind of catch deja vu, tracks that have a drum sample that is dirtied up just a smidge with a kind of muddy bass line. Songs like 1000 O'Clock or Tetra, there are several songs or instrumentals on this LP like that. So I do kind of catch a bit of deja vu from time to time with the beats. I'm feeling a strong 7 to a light 8 on this thing. What did you guys think of it if you've listened to it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? And what should I review next? Anthony Fantano, Aesop Rock, forever.